The making of a loudspeaker voice coil. We show you step by step a simple way to copy and build a voice coil that has been impossible to find in the market. Materials: isolated copper wire 30 AWG, toluene or epoxy solvent, yellow contact adhesive, slow drying epoxy resin, scissors, masking tape, a thin wooden stick, X-rays plastic film, a clean cloth, a piece of aluminum foil 1145, and craft paper. Eventually, we may require a tip spear scalpel and a heat gun. It is required to have a mold or formwork that has the same diameter of the voice coil, and a winding machine. If it's not possible to get it, we can tailor a hand drill. Procedure: the first thing to do is carefully read the article link which is beneath this video. You will find a whole theory and series of recommendations necessary to achieve this project successfully. Place the mold in the drill material and ensures. We measure the width of the winding of the damaged voice coil, and we use that measure with 2 mm of tolerance on face over the aluminum strip. Will be the body of the new voice coil. The aluminum strip, it must be bent with the help of a pen or a pencil. The silver side should face inward. The aluminum strip is placed around the mold and secured with masking tape. It must be just with the mark that defines the width of the winding. We place 2 X-ray strips on the aluminum bottom. This is done to ensure that after finished building the voice coil, we can retire off the mold. Now, we must prepare epoxy resin. Equal parts are used, both resin as hardener. And we stir for a couple of minutes until we get an even mixture. To the mixture are add a few drops of epoxy solvent, if not use toluene. And we mix it again. This is done so that the mixture becomes softer and liquid, allowing a better distribution. Now we make sure that the copper wire is at the top part of the masking tape. And we pull it down. We apply epoxy resin all over of the top of the aluminum, at the part where it will be roll up the wire. It must be well spread, without excess or lumps. Now, let's proceed to wind the wire. The first turnaround must finish exactly at the point where the wire began. Sometimes it is necessary to test several times until achieve the purpose, so that the wire is completely straight. When achieved first turnaround, put the start up at the machine and roll up the wire turns, without leaving spaces between turns and without that turn is mounted on another turn. It should be a perfect winding. After finishing roll up the first winding wire layer, we apply epoxy resin over the copper winding. This is to ensure that the wire is firmly stuck. To make the second copper winding layer going back, it must be rolled over with care, the first strong wire over the first winding layer. And wind the second layer wire, keep in mind the same recommendations which they were used in the first layer. The tension used, it must be less than we used in the first layer wire, so that the wire is not going embed between the bottom wire. After finishing off the second layer wire, we secure it at the other end of the masking tape. And we cut the wire, leaving a prudent amount of the same length as the star wire. If the star wires are somewhat separated, we must put them together using the edge of your nail. As the epoxy resin is slow drying, up to 24 hours, we can accelerate the drying using a heat gun. As the wire is heated, the resin boils, so go removing bubbles and excess of resin with the help of a clean cloth. Let's remember that any particle which remains on the winding can interfere with the coil movement at the mounting of the speaker. After a few minutes of heat drying, let the voice coil cool naturally. After about 10 minutes, we proceed to remove the varnish of the ends wire. For this we use a lighter, and then sand with fine grit sandpaper. With a multimeter on the scale of 200 ohms, we measure the voice coil. We can see that the impedance is slightly higher than required. Then, we remove the masking tape. We begin to remove wire on the winding tip end. And then a couple of turns of wire of the beginning winding. We place the wires in their correct position so that the polarity of the coil is standard established. The beginning wire is the positive, and wire end up is the negative one. We measure again the impedance, and see that have the right one. We proceed to remove X-ray strips. We remove the voice coil very carefully and place it on the contrary, which is colored inward. We measure the width of the voice coil's color. And we must have ready a craft paper piece or presspan paper of the same width of the voice coil's color and along a turn and forward around the voice coil. Now, we apply the yellow adhesive contact across the surface of the voice coil's collar. We spread it well using our finger. And let it dry for a while. Meanwhile, we apply the same glue in the craft paper. After the glue has dried, we proceed to stick the paper around the collar of the voice coil, having in mind started to paste under the wires. After going around, we put the wires over the paper. Apply some adhesive contact. We let it dry. And then we stick the paper over the wires, making sure that they are isolated both from aluminum and from the outside. The paper is pressed with help of the handle of a scalpel covered with a cloth. And in that way we ensure a strong and uniform adherence. Then, with a cloth moistened with toluene, clean excesses of glue that may remain. This is very important to prevent any particles can interfere with the work of the boy's coil, besides giving it a good look. Sand again the boy's coil's end to ensure that they are not the electric varnish areas, so will be good adherence of the weld. Now, we apply solder paste on the coil wires and we weld them. In this way we have a good electrical conduction and the coil is ready for installation. Now we are done with our 2" voice coil. We measure it in his matching speaker. It must descend down gently because of gravity. Remember that the wire of the right side is the beginning voice coil wire and therefore the positive pole. This is very important when testing the voice coil. To test the coil, weld a pair of wires at its terminal or wires, having in mind the polarity. The negative pole goes to the left side or end of the winding, and the positive pole goes to the right side or beginning winding. Place the coil in the speaker magnetic gap, and with a 1.5 volt battery, verify that the polarity is correct. The coil must jump from the magnetic gap. By reversing the polarity of the battery, you can see that the coil doesn't jump. Whenever jump, the voice coil will be the correct phase. We can already set up our coil manufacturing business. Success!